Hello, everyone. How are you all? I hope you're having a good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're joining us from. Today, we have the fourth workshop of the AI Video Hackathon. It will be presented by Karbon from Livepeer. He'll be discussing and talking about the new Livepeer AI Pipelines.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Karbon Dallas. I'm a developer relations engineer here at Livepeer, and today's workshop is going to focus on just doing a little more exploration with the pipelines that we have available for you to work with. And just as a quick reminder, this is the hardware requirement, software requirement, the kind of development environment configuration for this workshop. Nothing too out of the ordinary. But one thing to note here is we're going to be adding React to the mix, particularly using Next.js and some of the nice tooling that comes along with that whole ecosystem. Here's what we're going to cover today. Just another brief introduction to Livepeer AI. We'll walk through getting this sample repository set up, and then we'll do a little bit of interacting with the models, and we can chat a little bit, and I'll answer questions. But first, who am I? Well, as a reminder, my name is Karbon Dallas. I've been doing developer relations for over a decade. I have an open source software background. I've been doing startups since around 2011. I've also worked for some of these big companies that you might actually have heard of, like Salesforce, Microsoft, Discord, Twitch. And if you'd like to get in contact with me, I'm available at Karbon Dallas on Twitter, GitHub, LinkedIn, Telegram. And I'd be happy to chat or answer any questions that you might have. So to get started, let's do a brief introduction to Livepeer AI. What is Livepeer AI? Well, first of all, it's decentralized, it's open source. If you're watching this workshop first and you haven't seen from 0 to 1, please make sure to take a look. I'll kind of talk a little bit more about the kind of philosophy behind Livepeer AI. But what you're getting the opportunity to work with during this hackathon is to kind of preview our beta AI capabilities. This is a very new feature set for us. Things are constantly in the works, and right now with the phase of development we're in, we are really interested in hearing feedback from folks who are working with it on how we can improve. And also, one thing to note, you could help build new AI pipelines, new capabilities as you're interested in. There is an opportunity to complete bounties. This is run by our AI SPE team. SPE stands for a special purpose entity, and you can earn rewards in Livepeer token for contributing. So as of right now, we've got these 6 pipelines generally available. That'll be text to image, image to image, image to video, audio to text, image upscaling with segment anything 2, which is particularly new and interesting, and then image upscaling as well. And again, just as kind of a brief introduction here, text to image, some tips for success here, which we'll dive into a little bit more later. Obviously you're going to provide a text prompt, get a still image back. One thing that really helps if you're looking for a particular result is to make use of negative prompts, and also work with your image dimensions. Image to image pipeline, again, generates still images, but you're able to provide not only a text prompt, but an image as well. Key things here to note is you've got a couple more parameters versus the text to image. So you can adjust the strength, again, use negative prompts, but you've got guidance scales for both text and image. And we'll experiment with that a little bit later. Image to video is one of our newer pipelines as well. We're not going to touch too much on this just because of the time it takes to complete a request. For the scope of this workshop, we're going to focus primarily on text to image and image to image, just so we're not all sitting here staring at a screen waiting for the results to come back. Audio to text as well has a number of really interesting use cases. We're not going to cover this too much in this workshop. And image upscaling. So what's one key thing to note here is, with the image upscaler that we're using, you do have the opportunity to provide both an image and a text prompt to help guide the upscaling. And one common use of the upscaling pipeline is in accompaniment with text to image or image to image, where maybe you generate lower resolution images for the sake of speed and resource consumption. And then, when you've identified a result that you want to see more of, then you take the step of passing, the selected images into the upscaler. So, here's a brief introduction. The slide intentionally left blank. Let's jump into the sample repository. So to get started here, very similar to the previous workshop, step one, we're going to clone the repository from GitHub. So head on over to github.com/Karbon Dallas, and you'll see that the newest repository on my profile looks like this: Workshop Pipeline Exploration. I'll pause here just for a moment, make sure everyone has a chance to head over there. I'm also going to check chat real quick and pull that up over here. Awesome. Hey, Craig. Hey, Carrie. Hello, Keith, Robert, Simon. Yeah, let me just, while we're chatting, let me just drop this into the chat. I'm revealing, getting ahead of myself here. Compressor. Is the mic too loud? I can turn it down. Sorry, I actually turned it up based on feedback I got from the last presentation. So if I'm too loud, sorry about that. Okay, cool. All right, so link in chat, give everyone a chance to hop in. Yeah, no problem, Simon. All right, so once you have cloned the repository, obviously the next step is to install the dependencies. Luckily for us, we're using Node, we're using npm. It's a simple npm install. And we are using Next.js, Tailwind, what else? We got some Radix UI components in there. So, Node modules is going to be pretty heavy, but it wouldn't be a Node project without, a million modules. And once we have installed our dependencies, we'll go ahead and open our editor. And you'll be greeted with something like this. So this repository has everything that you need. If you're the kind of person that wants to just kind of go off and explore on your own, that's totally cool. You'll get started by just running npm run dev, and those instructions are in this README as well. So with that, let's actually start interacting with our models. Now, you may have seen the big green screen on my browser earlier. That's kind of the welcome screen to this little example application. But when you click into the two generators that we're focusing on for this workshop, they'll look something like this. So we have a text-to-image generator, and we've got an image-to-image generator. And what I've done here is just given you, a nice starting point to go off and build, a nice front-end app using React, using Next, all the nice, developer experience tools that we all know and love. And this allows you to kind of, work with the parameters very easily. So yeah, put this together. Just like I said, the goal here is to give you just a real, easy entry point into going off and building something. Now, some of you might notice, particularly those who were at the previous workshop, I'm kind of hinting at something here, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in the final slides of the workshop. But let's start with the text-to-image generator. As you can see, it's populated with the models that we have online in warm right now. And for more information on the difference between a warm and a cold model, please check out the 0 to 1 workshop. But to get started, let's use RealViz XL Lightning. Let's see how to maximize the client area. I'm not sure. I mean, I can make this window bigger if that's helpful. I can increase this if that'll help at all. Just let me know. So just, for the sake of audience participation, any prompt ideas anyone wants to throw out there? Perfect. Frog with wizard hat. I love it. All right. So for now, we're just going to leave all these other prompts as default. And let's generate an image. And what you'll see here is image will pop up down here. Adorable. Perfect, really. Now, what this app will do is let you kind of compare your results. So new images that come in will just kind of populate next to the other. So just for the sake of comparison, let's try Flux 1 Schnell. Oh, service unavailable. 1 second. The demo gods do not smile upon me today. Let's do the ByteDance one. That one should be available. And what you're seeing there is an unhandled API error, of course. This is a good opportunity to mention pull requests are welcome. Like I said, this is kind of just a starting point, but if you're interested in building out this type of application, there are steps provided in the repository in the README for how to open a pull request. So things like error handling would be fantastic. And let's try this again. What you're seeing here is a 503 error. This is what Livepeer will return if the models that we're trying to call are unavailable. And of course, when I was testing this last night, we didn't have any availability issues. So what are you going to do? Let's try the Hogwarts sorting hat idea. Uh-oh. Bad times. 1 second. Let me take a look at our backend services real quick. Apologies for the technical difficulties. If you run into these problems as well, this is something put together by one of the engineers on our AISPE team. And this will output a JSON object that has a list of which models are currently warm and cold available for all the different AI pipelines. So if you run into these kinds of issues, you can take a look and see, is it because there are no warm models available? Yeah, so just to go over real quick, Harry, what we've done, by utilizing Livepeer's decentralized protocol, it's the entire infrastructure is much different than a centralized version of the same service. So the incumbents you might be familiar with have to be frank, a much more simplified infrastructure. But because this is decentralized and permissionless, there's some considerations that need to be made for how requests are processed. So we have this notion of gateway that is going to route requests to orchestrators who have workers. Now, what can happen is, 1 second. Yeah, so to answer Carrie's question, a warm model is a model that's like online, loaded into memory, and ready to process requests immediately. A cold model is one that is available, but it hasn't already been loaded into memory. And so you you'll notice a performance difference in performance with cold models. It'll take a bit longer for the response to come in. Exactly what Robert mentioned here. So we know if you're using a cold model, my recommendation for the sake of the workshop is to just stick with the warm models. If you go to use a cold model, just be mindful of increasing the timeout limits, because oftentimes the delay, like Robert mentioned, would be much higher than standard timeout. So I'm just trying to kickstart some of our models here. Apologies for the delay, but thank you for sticking with me here. So for whatever reason, we're going to have to stick with our RealViz XL Lightning model for now. But just to give you a sense for kind of how these parameters can impact the output. Let's say we want to get rid of the red eyes. No more red eyes. Or perhaps we want to play with a different seed. Beautiful. I like where this is headed. Now, just to make a drastic change here, let's see what happens if we dramatically reduce the number of inference steps. And the model we're using right now, Robert, is the SG161222 RealViz XL v4.0 Lightning. And as you can see, this on the right here is 50 inference steps, and over here we've cut it down to 10. Now, for photorealistic results, typically you probably want to hit somewhere around the 50 mark. But depending on what you're going after, if you're looking for something a little bit more stylized, oftentimes you can get better results by not baking it too much in iterating on the inference steps. Let's see, Robert, to answer your question, as of right now, this is just kind of like the network capabilities endpoint is it's just something that our AI SP engineer put together. But if you're interested in the code that generates that, I can ask for that and see if we can forward that over to you. So seed is also something that will be interesting to play with. And even small changes to the seed can generate some fairly big differences as well. Yeah, so with Robert's asking what's a good way to think about the general effect more or less steps has an image. And the way I would put it is, the way that these diffusion models work is they kind of iteratively, take an image, add noise, and then do another round of inference on them. And so essentially it's kind of like, in a way I refer to it as like baking the image over and over and over. And that's how you're able to get, more, closer to like a photorealistic version. So just because I think it's helpful to kind of visualize, let's just say, man in a suit at a coffee shop. Now this is with 30 inference steps, which is still a little bit low, but as you can see, pretty photorealistic result. Now, if we drop this down to 10, you can kind of see, right, the edges are getting a little more blurry, a little less refined. Things are kind of bleeding into each other a little bit more. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it gives the it gives the model more opportunities to try to guide the image toward something that matches the prompt. So if we go back up to the default of 50, and again using the same seed, because I think it really helps to show the difference that these parameters make. So obviously, taking a scientific approach here and just changing one parameter at a time will be the quickest way to kind of build a mental model for what each of these parameters can do. So there's a question around the purpose of the safety check. This is just to help prevent not safe for work images from coming through. And you'll see a result. I'm hiding it here for the sake of this demo, but when you make a call using, like here on line 28, Livepeer generate text to image, inside of the result, you'll have an array of image response images. And that object will contain whether or not it triggered the safety check. So it'll say NSFW true or false. And depending on your use case, that might be an important flag to keep in mind. So back to this before we move on to image. Another important thing that I think will probably help you to understand is the guidance scale. So just, again, to make a contrast, we'll drop the guidance scale down to 1. And interestingly enough, I mean, I'd almost say that looks a little better. Let's pop it up to 10. Give it something to compare to. So as you can see, here's 1 on the right, 10 on the left. And, for this model, I would describe it as, really dialing up, the contrast, the saturation. Yeah, it's the steps, CFG scale, model choice. Yeah, I mean, those are definitely the key ones to keep in mind, but also negative prompt to really dial in what you're looking for. Let's say, we don't want, let's get rid of a wristwatch. I don't know if it's 1 word or 2, forget. Let's get rid of, let's see if we can get rid of a tie. Keep them in a suit, but get rid of the tie. No, still got the tie. But we do have, there's a number of kind of like standard negative prompts that you can put in here. So this is something we covered on the from 0 to 1, with things like, malformed eyes, right? Or, uneven. And that will help kind of improve the aesthetics. So now it's looking like the CFG scale's a little high. Let's bring that back down. Let's bring it way down. Okay. Yeah, for RealViz XL, I feel like guidance scale much lower is pretty interesting. Let's go back to 1337 as a seed. Yep, there we go. So as you can see here, that the seed is going to have one of the most dramatic effects on kind of the overall composition of the image. And the reason behind this is that the seed is controlling how the noise is applied to the image. So without getting into all the details, you kind of imagine just a lot of similar to like, you turn on old school TV and you just see like the static. That gets applied to the image iteratively, and then the model tries to kind of fix it, so to speak, to get an image that better matches the prompt. But the distribution of the noise is what ends up kind of having a big effect on the overall composition. So I'll pause here, answer any more questions that we have, and then we'll hop over to the image-to-image demo. And fingers crossed, no supply issues on that. And yeah, so Robert, to answer your question, Flux and Lightning have the same basic parameters. So regardless of what model you choose, you should have the same parameters. Just because this is all, basically a stable diffusion. Yeah, unfortunately, we've got some supply issues. So I'll investigate that later and make sure that we have those available for you to work with. But for some reason, we're having issues with those models. And to further expound on Robert's question, right now, the way that we have these pipelines set up is that there's sets of standard containers that we place these workers in. And so for most of the stable diffusion-based containers and models, they're all going to have the same parameters. But, if you take interest in a model you find on Hugging Face and it's got a different infrastructure, architecture, as it were, that's something that we can work to accommodate. So don't let this limit you. Yeah, Robert, to answer your question, the piece I'm using right here, and you can clone this down and get that running locally as well. I don't have this hosted anywhere on the internet, but if that would be useful, let me know. I'm happy to put it up on Vercel or something. Okay, let me just make sure I didn't miss any questions. Cool, looks like we're up to date. If I did miss your question, just feel free to ask again. So, comparing the text-to-image generator to the image-to-image generator, there's a few key differences. Obviously, you still have your prompt, but you're able to provide an existing image. As of right now, we just have the Pix-to-Pix model available. But what you'll see here is, rather than just having one guidance scale, we have two. So the one on the left refers to the guidance of the text prompt, and the one on the right here refers to the guidance of the image scale, or sorry, the amount of guidance the image is going to provide. Yeah, Robert, that is a great idea. That's something I'd be happy to chat through with you and help make that happen. After we're done with this workshop, folks that are trying things out, if you run into these 503 errors, just let me know, either in the Encode Club Discord or jump into the Livepeer Discord, and just let me know what model you're running into that issue with, and then we'll get additional capacity spun up. So, the other parameter to note here is strength. So let's pull in. Let's go with this one. This one has some interesting results. Let me pull it up for you so you can see. So we're going to look at this guy right here. And this is an image that we used in the 0 to 1 workshop. Let's use this to kind of play with the image-to-image generator. So, yeah. So that's interesting, Robert. You mentioned animation. This is something that we've been thinking about. If you are familiar with the forum, or maybe if you're not familiar, take a look. There's a lot of interesting things you can do to create an animation just by iteratively taking an image and putting it through the pipeline. Let me find a link for you. We've been thinking about trying to provide capabilities similar to what Deforum provides. So take a look at that. Let me know what you think. We've been thinking about trying to put together something like this on Livepeer. I think it'd be interesting. So, as I said, we're going to use our little hot air balloon. Let's just start out with saying, like, make it clean. Cool. Now we've got a green version. Maybe what we want to do instead is like add hats. Let's see if it can add hats to something. I'm guessing it'll maybe add hats to the little circles down there. Yeah, no problem, Robert. I'll be happy to do that. Yes. All right. We got little hats on the little orbs floating in the sky. But again, the interesting thing here is to kind of play around with one parameter at a time. So reducing the number of inference steps is going to really reduce the amount that it's able to modify the image. We crank it up, might bake it really well. And obviously, the more inference steps that you add, the longer that it will take. So we'll put it back to 50. Just to give you, an idea of how these parameters affect each other. Let's take the prompt guidance and drop that down to 1 and see what happens. All right. And inversely, let's drive that up to 10. Uh-oh. Looks like I've got a bug to work on as well. As you may notice, this one is a 502 error. So this is an error with how the SDK is interacting with the API. Our SDK is pretty new, and so we are still working through some bugs. Yeah, this is that's Livepeer JS, which is published on NPM as at Livepeer/AI. But yeah, Robert, you're correct. So I think we've covered about what I want to show here. Like I said, the point of putting this together is just to give you something to start from, to really dial in the results that you're looking for. Now, I did allude to something earlier in the presentation. Actually, before I do that, let's take a look at some of the code. So if you're interested in working with this repository as a starting point, I want to kind of guide you through some of the key aspects, the key components here. So one thing that has come up that I've seen some questions about, and I want to make sure that we cover, is right here in Next.js. I have from line 9 through line 23, I've defined remote patterns for images. This is kind of a security feature of Next.js that only allows your application to load in remote images from authorized remote hosts. Hey, Michael. Yeah, that's totally fine. But honestly, if you're working on something and you're finding that the model is not always available, just ping us in Discord, and we should be able to help get the capacity up so that you have a reliable endpoint to work with. And part of what we're looking for in doing these these types of workshops and working with hackers like you is to just get a better sense of like what folks are interested in. Obviously, we have our perspective, but from the way I see things, this is great user research. We're still very, very early in Livepeer AI features and capabilities. So we're really looking to get good signal from y'all, folks who are building interesting things. Like, what are you interested in? Like, what's working well, what's not working well? Obviously, as you saw in the demo, there's some bugs to work out both in the SDK and also with our capacity. But this is the kind of feedback that's really very, very valuable for us, and we'll work together with you to help make your project a success. So yeah, Robert, to your question about how long images persist, it's not particularly long. So I would suggest, if you want your images to be durable, try to make a local copy of them. One, real easy way to make this happen without additional infrastructure is to use something like Upload Thing. They have a pretty generous free usage tier, and the SDK for it's pretty nice as well. And yeah, Amazon S3 is just fine. So yeah, back to this real quick. Just this has been a gotcha for some folks. So if you end up trying to load images from, let's say Upload Thing or S3, you want to make sure that you've included the right host name and path name, so that your app will actually load the images. And then jumping into the actual application itself, it's a very, very bare bones. But you can place components that you build in the components directory. Yeah, no problem, Robert. Happy to help. And inside app, we just have, we're using the app router of Next.js. So if you've used previous versions of Next.js, this might be a little different. But rather than using the pages router, we're using app. And so essentially what you do is, the folder name reflects the route, and then page.tsx in this case will be what loads. And one thing to call out here is that as you can see here, here's page, here's layout. So this is the root page. This is what you see when you first open the app. And the way that the app router works is it will use the closest layout to the page that you're loading. So if you don't define a layout inside of each route, it'll reach back and use this layout for the page. And that's just going to nest your page content right in here on line 17. So, here's the text to image page. And, this is a client-side component. It's nice and interactive. And like I mentioned, we're using some Radix UI components. We're using some React icons also from Radix UI for the dropdowns. And I populated, the model IDs that should be available, your options for height and width. And we can dive through this real quick, but essentially, here's line 52 is when we start actually building the UI. And we've got on line 58, we've got our form. Things to call out here, just in case you go and run into some of these issues, is just with the way that these components work, you do need to use state to track the selected option in the dropdowns. So when you change the model ID, height, width, and the safety check, you'll want to use state to capture your variables. Yeah, that's a good idea, Robert. So Robert suggested mentioning Sharp. So if you're going to do any image manipulation beyond what the AI pipeline itself does, Sharp is a great package for that. I've used this for a number of projects in the past, and it's pretty robust. It has a nice API as well. But yeah, so, I'm going to skim over most of the structure here. It's obviously it's a lot. I didn't put these into components. It's just all inline. But this is our, our form that allows you to interact with all of the parameters. And as you can see, here's a form field here. This is for num images per prompt. We didn't change that at all, but you could. And as you can see in here, you can, define minimum, maximum, default value. So it makes it very easy to kind of throw together a form that's going to guide the user experience in the way that you'd like. Similar for the image to image, the same kind of thing, obviously just with slightly different parameters. Again, use state for anything you put into a dropdown. And the way that works is you've got your form state, set form state. That should be a fairly familiar pattern. But then here's your handle select change. And so you'll see that down here under model, right here on line 92, on value change, call handle select change, and provide model ID with the new value. And that way, when you submit your form, you've captured all of the data on the form. And speaking of that, the way we've done this is we're using image to image from app actions. And this is another nice thing about Next.js. You come down in here to actions.ts. And this is where we process on the server side. As you can see on line 1, this is a server component. And this is how we process our requests. So here's the text to image, doing a lot of TypeScript, typecasting. And then right here on line 28 through line 39, this is where we actually call the Livepeer AI SDK. And we just dump in all of the parameters. And similar story down here with image to image, and doing some fun things to massage the image data into a blob that the SDK expects. And also, just for convenience, I've gone ahead and saved the image locally. So if you're working with images that you're pulling in, you'll at least have under the public directory. They'll start populating here, so you don't lose anything. Like I said, a similar process here. On line 83, we make that call to image, and the biggest difference here is you providing the image data as a blob. So I'll pause there real quick, see if there's any questions before we jump back into the final slides. Hey, God, well, absolutely. Your question actually is a perfect segue into some of the final slides for this presentation. So if you need to watch the recording later, that's totally cool as well, but this part is for you. So we took a look at text to image generator, image to image generator. We played around with the parameters a bit. And one thing that I want to remind everyone is, this is a hackathon, there are prizes. Let's talk a bit about the prize, the categories. And we discussed this a bit in the first workshop, 0 to 1. As previously mentioned, category 1 is social media apps. So this is, applications for the end user, normies, if you will, things that might have the potential to go viral or provide just, novel, interesting experiences that people are likely to share with friends. Category 2 is developer tools. And if you catch my drift, what I've shown you here is kind of a basic starting point for a developer tool. I think this is something worth exploring. If you're interested in building developer tooling, please feel encouraged to take this repository and run with it if that's of interest of you. If you want to take a slightly different route, that's great as well. I'm happy to help you on that journey. But I put this together because I personally think that there's a lot of value in creating additional tools like this that make it easier for other developers to work with Livepeer AI. And like I mentioned, previous in this presentation, we're still very early, and the majority of the effort that we've put in so far is really just on the infrastructure level, the APIs, and getting these capabilities built out. The SDK is still very new, and as you can see, we have very little additional supporting material. So I'm working to get things built out, but I would love input from the community if this is of interest to you. Let's chat. Third category, creator tools. One could pretty easily take this as a foundation and build something more creator-centric as well. And just for context, at least in my mind, when I say creator tools, I'm thinking of, content creators. Livepeer has been around for many years and has primarily, up until recently, served content creators who are, creating live video. So I'm interested to explore, what it looks like to integrate Livepeer AI capabilities in a way that might provide value to content creators as well. And again, if you're interested in pursuing this path, I'm happy to be available and chat through, help you validate your ideas, give you some suggestions. And of course, we're going to talk about the price structure. Just as a reminder, if you weren't in the first 0 to 1 workshop, there are first, second, third place prizes. First place is 2,000 USD. Second place is 1,000 USD. Third place is 500 USD, and that is for each category. So a total of 9 winners, over 10,000 USD available. So pretty good odds, of walking away with some kind of reward, and obviously the opportunity to provide us with some value as well. We'd greatly appreciate that. This slide intentionally left blank before I wrap up. And dive into chat again. Make sure we don't have any unanswered questions. So yeah, Robert, creator is kind of like an end user. I would say, content creators are not as likely to have as much of a technical background. So, the example I gave in our previous workshop, just to kind of get your mind, heading in that direction, is like, what would it look like? Let's say someone is a content creator, they stream tabletop RPGs. What would it look like to use AI to assist in, generating those visuals, giving the players something to really, kind of imagine, right? So kind of like we did the frog in a wizard hat. I think it'd be pretty cool to create a tool. Maybe this is something that integrates with OBS, open broadcast, is it software or system? I forget. Something that integrates with a streamer tool that makes it easy for them to, bring in visuals from maybe the viewers, or for them to easily prompt on the fly with visuals to assist the players as they're imagining the scenario that they're in. I think that would be particularly interesting, and you could take that in a lot of different directions as well. I see Godwell's typing, so I'll pause here before I jump into our final slides. And if anyone else has any questions, please feel free. I will also drop a link to my Google Calendar if you'd like to book some time with me to chat through your idea. Feel free to do so right here. Yeah, so Godwell, I believe the link to the recorded, oh, there, Adriana's going to answer that for you. Oh, I gave you the wrong link. What the heck, is that the right one? No, that's the right one. Okay, cool. Yeah, absolutely, Robert. I'm happy to help you with with guidance. The judging will be done by a panel of judges. So, happy to give you my input. All right. And then we're just about at time, so let's wrap up real quick. And then any questions that I don't get to, please feel free to ping me in the Discord. I love it. All right, pizza sounds good. You guys are great. Thank you. All right, so again, this slide intentionally left blank, mostly just for dramatic effect. Clear your minds. It's like a mental palate cleanser after all that we've gone through today. So, in conclusion, this has been Pipeline Exploration. Here's what we covered. Another brief introduction to Livepeer AI. Got set up with the sample repository. We interacted with some AI models. We ran into some bugs. That happens. Thank you for being gracious with me, by the way. I'll be putting in some research to figure out how we can handle those more gracefully. And I think we might have also discovered an SDK bug. So that'll be interesting to work through as well. Thank you again. My name is Karbon. I'm available for questions. I'll be on the Encode Club Discord as well as Livepeer Discord. And again, I know I've said this a lot, but please send us your feedback. Don't hold back. Give it to us, like you see it. A big part of what we're getting out of workshops like this, not only is, getting people interested in working with AI, getting them thinking about what's possible when it comes to, AI and video, but really it's that feedback, right? Let us know if things are confusing, if you feel like there's gaps in the documentation, or, you have an idea for, some additional support material that you think would really help folks. I'd love to hear it. And again, hop on Discord. You can get to our Discord at discord.gg/livepeer. And just to wrap up, here are the 2 links that you should walk away with. The first one is just the repository that we worked with today, and a link to the introduction to the Livepeer AI docs. And I think that's that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Karbon. Would you mind potentially copying and pasting those links in the chat?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'll send them in the Discord as well. And I replied to Godwill, but just in case anyone else is wondering, all the videos are recorded and we upload them on our YouTube, and I send the link into the Discord as well. I'll see everyone for tomorrow's workshop, and yeah, that's it. Everyone have a nice day. Bye.